So, in the last episode, we took a flight from Islamabad to Skardu, and after only spending one night here, we started our journey towards Ascole. We started out in the early morning and arrived in Ascole around lunchtime. And after spending a night under the shade of poplar trees at this very green campsite at Ascole, we set out for Jula. For our first day's trek, getting to Jula was quite challenging for some of the members, but we all arrived safely at the campsite and got some amazing views of Bakurdas. Early next morning, we set out for Peju and trekked along the Braldo River. And along the way, some wild berries growing in the shrubbery caught my eye. It took us maybe 4 to 6 hours to get to Bardumal, which is also known as Mandron campsite. And although one is trekking along the Braldo River, but there is hardly any drinking water on the way. Hello Sajida, how are you?
Better,
Bakhair agle.
some shade. How have you been?
Not too bad. And we have the mother and daughter arriving. And also Catherine and Simon. Despite some scattered clouds in the sky, the sun was brutal while we stopped for an early lunch at Bardomal. Leaving Bardomal behind, we kept trekking along the Braldo River and soon arrived at a glacial stream that had to be crossed over a makeshift bridge. Okay. The trail keeps perilously close to the Braldo River, and as we get closer to Peju, we get to see a large number of wild rose bushes growing along the trail and the mountainside. Just short of the Peju campsite, there's a clump of large green trees. These trees are in stark contrast with the surrounding dry and rugged terrain. And naturally, these green trees are a very relaxing sight for the eyes. As you enter the campsite, the triangles, the cathedrals, and the Lopsang spire welcome you to Peju from not so far away. Hi. Doing good?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, not so bad.
Not so bad.
Yep. एक चीज़ वाली. Peju is a terraced campsite with plenty of water and groves of trees perched on the mountainside. The cool shade of the trees makes it a perfect refuge from the scorching sun. At exactly 3,400 meters above sea level, the campsite is a true oasis in the otherwise stark and rugged terrain. And it was heartwarming to see a large number of trekking parties camped here, both local and foreign, in mid-July.
ले लिया ये रोटी से सब क्या आजू जाए ना कैसे आजू शिवर से ये हमारे में शिवर में उसे रोटी दाल नहीं होती किसके लिए रोटी बना ये हलवाल के लिए ना 10 बंदे हैं 10 बंदे 100 रोटी खाए 50 रोटी लगाने हैं 50 रोटी कितनी लगी है सुबह शाम 30 रोटी बनाए हैं
When the sun set in the west, the overall mood of the campsite and the peaks that surround it became quite somber. But in contrast, I was so looking forward to seeing Trango Towers up close the very next day. Next morning, it maybe took us an hour to get from Jeju to the eye of the Baltoro Glacier. This is the point where this massive glacier transitions into Braldo River. This part of the glacier is covered in a lot of rock and debris from the mountainsides, and we're basically traversing from one bank of the river to the other side. And smack in the middle of this traverse is the best place to view the very daunting, rugged and beautiful Trango Towers. When looking back from the other side, one can see some blue ice and how the glacier is breaking down and melting away. At Liligo, we stopped for lunch, but we got caught in a rainstorm, so I wasn't really able to make any footage. But soon after, we arrived at the brand new bridge at the sandy banks just before Hobose campsite. This bridge made of rocks and wood planks is a recent development, because not so long ago I braved the icy cold muddy glacial waters of this stream just to get across.
The view of the cathedrals, the Trangos, Peju, and Ulibiaho from Hobuste is nothing less than a spectacle.
Early next morning, when we set out for Urdukas from Hobose, we could definitely feel the coolness in the air.
So we've left Hobose, we're heading for Urdukas. It's going to be a short trek today, sort of a rest day. And you can see the mules and the trekkers climbing up the trail. Got parivash on Korean noodles.
So from here on, more of the glacier starts getting visible from under the rocks and debris. And there's this amazing geological phenomena which we call rock mushrooms. So the ice under a rock or a boulder keeps melting, but the shaded part takes much longer to melt. Thus the rock becomes suspended on this pillar of ice, making it a rock mushroom. So after traversing a couple of glaciers which were falling into the Baltoro, we started climbing a steep section back onto the moraine on the true left side of the Baltoro Glacier. So instead of having a rest day at Teju, we pushed on to Hobose, and from Hobose, Urdukas is roughly between 2 to 4 hours trek. So in a way, this was our rest day.
Urdukas is now visible, and I'm guessing around another 20 minutes or so. There is a sharp climb just before the campsite, but this is by far one of the best campsites on the Baltoro. The terrain over here is as if the wind, the rain, and the elements have eaten away the mountainside. Back in 2004, when I came, much of this was still intact. This landslide, this rock slide, or maybe an avalanche, seems to be pretty recent. There is a very steep yet green section just before Urdukas. We roughly gain 150 to 200 meters from the glacier below to arrive at yet another terraced campsite. Set right across the Trango Massif, at 4,000 meters above sea level, Urdukas is a terraced campsite, perched on a very steep mountainside. It houses massive rock boulders and large patches of green. Years of my coming to this corner of the planet, I have never witnessed such clear weather over the Trangos, the Peju, and the Uli Biaho while camped at Urdukas. Urdukas has a very dramatic disposition, and like campsites that precede it, the mood is defined by the change in the angle of the sunlight.